everybody. You're listening to, and if you're live streaming in, you're watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
and we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books. So you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, possibly stream in. It's the beginning of March. We're almost at daylight savings time. So, as we're recording this, what was that for?
Well, it's just I hate anytime we have to change the clocks at all. I don't like going back.
You're
I
in
don't
your
like going
40s.
forward.
What does it matter? Like, you haven't gotten used to this yet?
No, I'm used to it. It's just it's so annoying, and especially now because everything that you have, like your TV, your phone, your computer,
all
it automatically sets it for you.
Yeah, it's just the only thing we have is the clock in the kitchen.
Yeah,
that's the only thing we have where we got to.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I gotta get up there and wind it and whatever. But it's just.
But
I need to pick one.
It just seems like I don't know.
The Hubs was lamenting having to wake up an hour earlier, and I'm just like, hey, I get an extra hour of sunlight in the afternoon, and that to me is worth it. Like I need sunlight. I miss sunlight. I love it. I would not do well in 30 days of night. I would go insane.
You'd be like immediate vampire food. It's just like, no, just take me now. I'm not into this.
Yeah. Well, I can't say vampires, but I do know I would not survive a zombie apocalypse. I'd be one of the first to go.
Oh, well.
I'm just confident I'd turn the wrong way or something. It would be something stupid.
See, at the end of the world, if that happens, I'm not gonna be one of the first to go. I'm gonna put up a fight, but I'm gonna even out some scores. Like I'm not going after just zombies. Like I'm gonna right some wrongs that have happened at that point. So, I'm coming for a few fuckers at that point.
Just gonna go around. We are the Walking Dead. Pachoo.
Yeah.
I'm not a zombie. I don't care.
Yeah, it's like I didn't say you were. I'm not.
I just wanted to practice my headshots.
I just don't like you.
Yeah. The only thing keeping this from happening before was society, and that has fallen, and so are you.
Well, for the last few weeks, we've been talking about the news segment, and very often we had almost no news, and now we have an abundance of news. So we're going to start right off the bat with that.
Oh yeah, we got a ton. We got a ton of stuff. And so last week, last episode, we talked about Comics Pro taking place, and Comics Pro happens every year about this time. Comics professionals, i.e., professional retailers, as well as publishers and distributors, all get together and just talk about the business, talk about the industry, and a lot of publishers like to drop some tidbits and drop some announcements, now, because it's a great time, top of the year, but also to get retailers really excited about what's coming up, and to show, retailers, comic shops, and mom and pop shops to big chains, that there's some good stuff coming, and get them excited for that. And so we had some really interesting announcements here. Comics Beat, Heidi McDonald does a great job wrapping up a lot of these and summarizing all of these. So I picked some of the ones that really stood out to me. First off, Kirkman and Dee Felici, who you may remember had worked together before on Oblivion Song, which I really love that series. Well, they're coming out with a new series called Void Song. I guess they really like to sing. And again, it's coming in from Image and Skybound, and sounds a little bit kind of like end of the world thing in space, with a little bit of Enemy Mine mixed in. If anybody remembers that classic 80s sci-fi series, sounds pretty cool. I know I'm going to be picking it up. That comes out a little bit later this summer. Mad Cave made some really great announcements as well. They actually ended up getting the license to publish Winx, which, if you're not familiar, started out as, I believe, an Italian cartoon about sort of half fairy or full fairy girls with powers. Became a really popular cartoon here in the US as well on Nickelodeon, and actually spawned a Netflix live action series, which lasted 2 seasons, and it wasn't bad. I really enjoyed it. But they're actually going to be publishing the comics. It's going to go into their sort of YA and also younger reader lines. I believe it's Maverick and Paper Cuts are those two the two lines. Paper Cuts, of course, for younger readers. But they've also gotten a couple other licenses. One of the big ones was Asterix. They're going to be publishing the latest volume of Asterix coming out stateside. And Bill, do you know who was publishing it before? Because I know they've had lots of translations already in the States. I can't
I
recall.
want to say the last publisher was Titan in
Mm,
the States. Does that sound right?
it sounds right. I know I've seen. It does sound like somebody that I've seen, in the, in the mark before.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean it's a really big property, obviously in Europe. And when it comes here, I know it's got its fans, and I'm sure pretty much every French teacher across the U.S. is going to be encouraging their students to pick up a copy in English, um, and then also in French if they can find it. From I believe Panini puts it out in the U.S. If you want it in French, you can import it. Um, but I thought that was pretty cool. Also, Mad Cave will be putting out a book called Monomyth, which is from one of our frequent guests, David Hassan. So that's pretty.
I'm just going to interject here. It
Yeah.
appears that there were two recent publishers for Asterix.
Ooh.
The main publisher was Sterling Publishing,
Okay.
and there also was a more comic book oriented line from Paper Cuts.
Well, and
Those
Paper Cuts, which has been acquired by Mad Cave. So there you
that
go.
could be very well the reason. Yep.
There you go. They still
There
have
you
it
go.
now, but now it's Mad Cave. So I thought it was really cool. Some cool stuff coming out from there. Boom, of course, announced that a lot of their popular series are coming back for a new volume, more issues. Grimm, Berserker, Something is Killing the Children, which has been a huge hit over the past couple of years. And they just recently had a super successful Kickstarter for The Expanse, for a new continuing comic series that takes place I believe after season 6, which was the last season of the TV series.
What was the justification that they needed to go to a Kickstarter to launch that?
I'm not really sure. I think just probably part of it was to gauge interest, but also you get a lot of help for publishing this. They did the same thing with Berserker, which was the #1 Kickstarter for comics ever when it was
But
launched.
but
And
Berserker,
The
I
Expanse
can
actually.
understand a little bit more since it's an unknown property.
Mhm. Well, The Expanse, they did
Expanse,
put out a comic
yeah,
series
right.
a
That's
couple of years.
exactly why I'm asking why they went the
I don't know.
Kickstarter.
I think there was a couple reasons, but
Berserker as a Kickstarter makes a hell of a lot more sense than
yeah.
the Expanse.
Yeah, but I mean,
No.
other publishers have done that for previous series as well. Like it's just
Mhm.
becoming the more and more norm.
Yeah.
The bigger publishing houses are jumping in and they're kickstarting projects. They're getting those kind of pre-production costs paid for up front. And it's not just like anymore. It's not just for newer stuff. I don't off the top of my head. I can't tell you what I'm thinking about. But it's yeah. So other publishers have done that though.
Yeah.
I
Just
I mean, I
it's
know they
becoming the new
have.
norm.
But sometimes there's the justification, whether it's like a deluxe edition or
Yeah.
things along those lines. It's made apparent. It just surprised me since this is something that already has a fan base that probably would respond to it being published, whether there was some launch backing or not.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and I think here they're probably getting if you backed it on the Kickstarter, you probably got some little extra goodies along with it. Maybe you got the collected edition,
Mm.
stickers. Something that encourages people to like put down some money. But what it does is it basically tells movements like you've already pre-sold all of these, this certain number, and then
yeah.
everything else that you actually put on the shelf and sell would just be gravy on top of that. Like you're guaranteed this income because it happened up front. But no, we'll see. I'm excited for it. I did not kickstart it, but I will be buying it when it comes out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. If I know it's connected to a major publisher and I know it's going to be in Diamond or in Lunar, I'm not gonna back it on Kickstarter. I don't need the ephemera.
Yeah. If I'm not gonna get anything super special on it, I won't back it. And I think that's fine. I think that's the majority
Yeah.
of people who who see a big publisher online on Kickstarter. The other thing that they're coming out with is they're doing a big Power Rangers anniversary special. I think it's a mini series or some kind of big special event thing. And as Bill reminded us before we started the show tonight, they've lost the license or will be losing the license very shortly back to Hasbro, who I guess is probably going to be publishing their own comics with it at some point, either directly or with another partner. But
Yeah, because
unfortunately not with Boom.
the contract with Boom predated Hasbro's purchasing the property.
Mm-hmm.
It was for a fairly long time.
It has been for a while.
I think it's at least 7 years
Yeah.
at this point, probably more.
I mean, they've put out a ton of stuff. I mean, a lot of really critically and fan loved series of Power Rangers comics have come out over the past 5-7 years that Boom.
Oh yeah, our buddy
publishing it,
Arnie
so.
adores them. Like
Yeah,
he gets them all.
yeah. So, and I of course have not read one of them. I've been resisting the nostalgic pull because I
think I read the first issue of Cena's book, and I have a couple of. I don't think I finished the run, but the art was spectacular in the Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover. That had wonderful art. And, talk about a '90s gasm there.
Yeah, I think I got that one. Was that Freddie Williams?
No, it was a newer artist.
Okay.
I would not get excited about Freddie Williams.
See, I love Freddie Williams.
I
love his stuff.
You can have my books then.
Cheers to Caleb with the.
Sometimes it works, like
wine.
1985, it worked. But sometimes I don't think it does.
Well, yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe now that Boom's losing it, maybe kind of like with Dark Horse, they did a massive, crazy sale when they originally lost the Star Wars license back to Marvel. And maybe that'll be a perfect opportunity for me to pick up a whole bunch of stuff off of Humble Bundle for Power Rangers. So I'll finally get to read it all. And also one of the other things that I was excited about, and Caleb was also excited about, and Bill was like, "What?" Is Mechadeck U, which has been a series.
I thought you.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about something else. Okay, I know what that is. Okay.
Yes, Mechadeck U, which is such a heartwarming, Boy
I
and
thought you
Giant
just
Robot
like
story.
met the deck. I was like, what the?
Mech the Deck, my favorite.
Met the deck.
Mech the Deck. No,
I didn't hear. I met
U.
like yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, at least I've heard of it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's
They're
great. It's
really
great.
great.
It's great pot goodness.
We met the deck, and the
Yes.
deck is a fine.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Well met, Deck. But yeah. So
many happy returns of the day, Deck.
So Mech Cadet U.
Okay.
Which has, I believe it's 3 volumes now. It's had like three series, 3 volumes. It is now being turned into a Netflix series called Mech Cadets, without the U, but I'm sure you will be in it. But I'm really excited about that. I believe it's an animated series that Boom is licensing to Netflix. So hopefully we'll see it soon and it won't get pre-canceled because I'm really excited about it. So that'll be pretty cool. And actually, speaking of animated series that were kind of in limbo for a little while, hopefully trying not to be canceled, Batman: The Caped Crusader, which is really I think is one of the follow-ups in the line of the animated series, the original Bruce Timm series, isn't it? Because I know he is co-producing this one with J.J. Abrams.
I'm a little bit confused because some of the art doesn't necessarily look like TAS.
Yeah.
And I'm also not sure. I know it was also picked up for 2 seasons off the bat.
Yeah.
which is
2.
good.
And picked up by Amazon Prime. So it's
Yeah.
actually going to be an Amazon produced series showing on their Prime Video.
Well, Amazon's not producing it.
Well, not producing
Warner's
it, but
producing
it's
yeah.
still Warner Brothers producing,
Yeah.
but Amazon's putting it out on their streaming.
I'm wondering if we have confirmation that oh, what's his face? Guy who passed away who was Batman. I can't believe I'm losing. I can't think of his name.
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have confirmation that he was able to record all of that?
I don't know.
I haven't heard anything.
I mean, it was in production, so it's
Because if you look at the
possible.
names that are there, he's the only familiar name.
Hmm.
At least in terms of TAS lore, but you also have a lot of people passed away since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wow, that's a lot of now. Alfred Commissioner Gordon and Batman are all gone.
Hmm.
Wow.
Sad
I'm
bare
sure
face.
we'll have some kind of confirmation of that at some point soon.
Yeah. They haven't really. I don't think they've said yet when it's actually going to be premiering the first season anyway, and how they're going to be putting it out, whether it's going to be weekly or all at once.
Well, from what I understand, is there's still work to do on it, and they were
Mhm.
just waiting for some kind of go ahead with an
Yeah.
outlet. So
that's good. So we are getting that, which again, that was kind of one of those when Warner Brothers Discovery started whacking stuff left and right and taking stuff off of HBO Max that was guaranteed to be on HBO Max. That was one of those series that was already in production, well into production, and
yeah,
just lost its home. But
this
now,
yeah, it's interesting. I just want to do a bridge here. Um, you had mentioned in your reporting of this that this was a project that Warner's initially had earmarked for HBO Max,
mhm,
and then effectively sought a buyer.
yeah,
This is something that occurred after we had our news discussion, but apparently Bob Iger was speaking at a Merrill Lynch conference late today, and he said that's something that Disney will also be open to now. That not
hmm,
necessarily leaving all of their internally produced content solely within Hulu and Disney Plus. That is an avenue that they'll be exploring. That they're going to maintain the jewel
mhm.
properties like Star Wars and Marvel and Frozen. I think those are the three that he specifically mentioned. But they would be open going forward to possibly farming some stuff out in terms of where you can see it. So
I wouldn't be surprised because I think right now they're one of the few who really doesn't do that.
yeah, because you do
Um,
have
yeah,
tentacles from Universal and Paramount, CBS also that they have different platforms.
yeah.
Uh,
You can. I
yeah,
mean, they basically cannibalize from each other when it comes to the streaming services
yeah.
now. And
Hmm.
most of the content on the broadcast channels is, it's produced by the different like Warner Brothers has stuff on Fox and on CBS, and Paramount has stuff on,
Yeah.
on NBC and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing Disney produced stuff pop up licensed to Netflix
Mhm.
and maybe even HBO Max or
Yeah.
Max when it comes up. Um, but also speaking of new TV series on Disney Plus, this just came out was right now I think it's just a 4-episode miniseries, but it's called M Power. It's the letter M Power. And specifically was released for for March, which is also Women's Month. Women's History
International
Month,
Women's Month.
International Women's Month.
International. Like the House of
Um,
Pancakes, the
yeah.
International House of Pancakes. International Women's Day.
And this one's actually produced
That actually came
by.
out much more offensive than I thought it would.
I'm going through like in my head. I'm also kind of conflating that. How you were saying that with Better Off Dead. Yeah, I speak the international language. Love. The international language of love. Anyway, yes. So Zoe Saldana co-produced this series or executive produced the series. and it explores the different women who have featured very prominently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you have a whole episode that's about the women of Wakanda, features interviews, clips from the movies, the actresses as well as producers and writers who are involved in the comic series and also in the films, talking about this.
Yes, I did watch the Wakanda episode, which is the first one. The others
Hmm.
are Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, and Gamora.
Yep.
And it's much more film based. They really
Mm.
didn't talk about the comics, but from what I understand, some of the other some of the other episodes do get into the comic side more. And I
Yeah.
think with Wakanda, that it may have been indicative that they had the most terrain to cover in terms
Mm.
of the number of characters they needed to talk about in 36 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
true.
could be why. Yep.
True. True. The other ones
Well,
were, I
It was
think, a
pretty
little bit
good.
more
It was pretty
focused.
good. You got
Yeah.
a good sense of the background of the particular actresses
Mhm.
that played the various parts in the Wakanda franchise. So it, it,
Cool.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
well,
I haven't had a chance to watch them yet, but it just came out yesterday. At the time we're recording this, so on the 8th of March.
well, speaking of women of Marvel and things that are going to be on Disney Plus, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I just saw a blip literally about 20 minutes before we jumped on the show. But they're getting ready to do. I think it's 2024. Daredevil Born Again is getting released. Deborah Ann Worrell or Wool, however you say her name, will not be returning.
Right.
Yeah.
Neither she nor the actor who played Foggy
Yep.
are coming
Mm.
back. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know what the deal is with that. Who knows? They've just gone on to do other things, I guess. I haven't seen them in anything, but
hmm
I just thought it was interesting. They won't be coming back.
I
So
was
Well,
pretty surprised by the former, not so much the latter. But again, I also have that prejudice regarding Born Again,
yeah,
you know, which is one of my favorite arcs of,
yes,
certainly my favorite Marvel arc of any
mhm.
character.
I
And just how central Karen is to that particular storyline. Um, but maybe they're just coming up with something very different because a lot of Nuke stuff was
yeah,
covered already. So
yep.
Mm.
it could be something very different than the series that the
We have
comic
a
series.
we have
Yeah.
a quick pop in here. Tony Gilkinson,
Tony.
hello
Hey
guys, hello
Tony.
Tony, good to see you. But
Tony's
yeah,
up in Tony. Tell us where you are in Minnesota. It's
some
it
place where
sounded
it's still
it's
very
it
frigidly
sounded like the
cold.
North Pole practically the way he was talking about it. Um,
But yeah, I really loved Deborah Ann Wall's. You know, her performance in the original Daredevil series on Netflix was, I mean, great. But I've loved her since True Blood. So,
Yeah,
you
same.
know,
she
but yeah,
brought
that
a
was
lot to that
disappointing.
character.
I know,
She
I
brought a
know.
lot.
So, well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm like people are already complaining online that like they're gonna immediately write the series off because it doesn't have two actors or two characters in it.
And
Well,
those are people we don't care about.
We
yeah,
don't care. So we'll see what they do. Oh, Tony is in Mankato.
like
Mankato.
Kata. Okay, there we go.
Minnesota.
um, yes. Um, but back on the comics side of things, the not necessarily like visual, the moving picture type, more of the static picture type. DC, around the same time that they were announcing their Night Terrors event that's coming this summer, around Comics Pro, they also announced that they will be bringing over some manga series from Kodansha and publishing them in the US, first on the DCU Infinite app. So they'll be available to read on the app first, and then later this year, probably in the fall or so, they're actually going to have print versions of three series. The first one features the Joker. The second one features Batman, and the third one features Superman in a very interesting way. It's Superman versus Menshi, where he basically goes to lunch with people and has different types of food as
Mhm.
Superman. So Superman eats lunch, which sounds really, really weird, but also really interesting and could be a fun time. As we, have seen with a lot of other manga series that have come over to the U.S., they're very interesting interpretations of the characters and the action and the settings, and do a lot of fun stuff that maybe you won't see very often in standard DC publishing. So
I'm
I'm excited for
excited
that.
for that, but I'm also a little bit saddened that we are getting this, but we still don't have print versions of the webtoon comics.
Oh,
I would really
yeah.
like to see those at some point because they're pretty good.
Some
They're
point.
decent.
Wait, I'm sure. I'm sure they'll have them coming
I
out.
know. I'm just surprised it hasn't happened yet because
Yeah.
there's certainly enough, at least with the on the Batman side of it, for one collected volume.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do have
Definitely see that.
also some Marvel news of a particular series that I I think one of us at least is really excited about. At least
It's
one.
me. Hi, it's me. I'm excited. It's me.
And that is a new Incredible Hulk series that is coming out from Philip Kennedy Johnson and
Nick Klein.
Nick Klein, working together. So they'll be exploring a little bit more Bruce Banner and his relationship with the Hulk. But I mean, that is the Hulk. is Bruce
Can
Banner's relationship with this other
I,
persona or set of personas?
yeah, well, I tell people all the time my favorite my top two favorite characters in Marvel are the Hulk and Bruce Banner. Like
Yeah.
that's and number three is Wanda. But those are my two favorite characters. But can I put a little star, a little asterisk beside by my excitement of this? I am excited because I did not like Donny Cates's run on this, but
Mm-hmm.
I got to caveat it with I'm not excited because of the reason that Donny Cates is no longer on here. I don't know if people have paid attention or not, but Donny Cates is like he's off of everything with Marvel now. I did some digging on this. About 2 years ago, Donny Cates, him and his he got married. Everything was great. Marvel going stuff now. Since then, apparently he is getting or has gotten divorced. His wife has left him. He has had various emotional, a lot of hardship. She has cut herself off from everything, social media and stuff from him, just completely like taken all the pictures of them offline. So I want to say, like, as excited as I am to get a new team on Hulk, I really hope Donny Cates is okay. Like, because
Mm,
if you've noticed, he went from being like Marvel's bright and shining star, he's not on anything anymore, just at
yeah.
all. And that makes me sad because he is an incredible and spectacular talent. And I just, from a human aspect, I worry about his emotional health, so in
Hmm.
his mental well being. So there's something going on with the guy that who I don't know him, so who am I to say? But that you can kind of look at social media and look at the what used to be posted versus what's posted now, and it's not there anymore. So there's some
Mm.
sadness going on in his life.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, if you've read the entirety of Crossover, there's sort of like some interesting, insight into his mind because he plays himself.
Yeah,
He basically writes
yeah,
himself into the series, and there's a lot of trauma there. There's stuff around, his wife at the time. I'm not sure if they were having issues at the time he was writing Crossover, because the book finally finished. I think what was it maybe spring of last year. But you know
mhm,
how the process time from writing, drafting, and then printing can be a lot. He probably had a lot of issues that were happening,
yeah. Something's
while he
going
was
on.
writing, but then also, after everything was already published and printed. So, but yeah, I mean, from there, he's very open in that book about struggles that he's had emotionally and in the past. So, yeah, hopefully he's
So,
okay.
as somebody who hasn't really been following his stuff, is this Thor wrapped up?
He's no longer on it.
Yeah.
So they did the same thing with Thor that they did something similar with Thor. I'd have to go grab the books and I will here in a moment. But yeah, so he's not been on that, or at least he's not top billing on that. They've now added with him underneath it with a new writer, script by but with plot by Donny Cates or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's off of it now too. Or he will be off of it shortly. And then uh, crap, the guy who's doing the artwork for the current Hulk run, Invincible guy, um, uh,
Uh,
he's now getting like writing credit and art credit on there
Okay.
as well.
hmm.
But his Venom, that was like an intentional wrap up, though, right? I think.
Yes, yeah, that was an
Okay.
intentional
All right.
wrap up. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the stuff that he's been on. The only thing that apparently is not an intentional wrap up will be his Thor and his Hulk run.
Okay.
His Thor run, by the way, like his parts of it are phenomenal. To be able to follow what he did, Jason Aaron's Thor run, did an amazing job. So that was, to be able to jump on that high watermark, but to follow Al Ewing on Hulk, his Hulk run has been trash. It's I was so excited because I was like,
Yeah.
yes, like let's do that, and then it was just not good. Which
Yeah.
I,
And it just seems like all
Yeah.
you have to do is bring like 50% of the tone of Venom there, and
yeah,
it
it
kind
would.
of write itself like to be a serviceable book. You know.
Mm.
But he made
That's
it into some
yeah.
weird mech thing in space that doesn't. I don't know. It's not good. It's really really bad, which is depressing
Yeah.
as
See,
fuck.
if he had threw in Met the Deck,
Yeah, like
it might have been something.
Tony Cates writes met the deck.
Deck. Well, I will throw in my wishes there for this too as well, Caleb. Let's hope this is like a how do we put it?
this too shall pass.
A self-run
Right,
um break.
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Well, that's good. And that is all I have. So I guess not much. There's not much.
Yeah, there's one
It's
other
really short.
Marvel related item that I'll get to in my woofs, which
Ooh.
so we will deal with something that was announced and it ties into my woof. So,
Cool.
okay. All right.
Excited.
I guess we could start talking about some comic books.
Comic.
We're gonna make
Caleb
history.
Caleb has never gone first on
I
this show.
haven't. Nope. We're gonna make history.
Never. And now he is. So Caleb, tell us about something you're reading that you're digging.
Yeah. So I think we've talked about this before. I'm
I
a.
talked about the first issue.
Oh, no, you spoke about the first issue, but I was in general talking about my relationship with Superman. Like I'm not somebody who has loved Superman forever.
He
For a lot of
never
folks.
calls.
Yeah. Right. No, he doesn't write.
Right.
But I'm a latecomer when it comes to my appreciation and my love for Superman, and I really do love it. It wasn't until a few years ago when I started reading yes a lot of the Superman back stuff, All Star Superman, the series that is to this day my favorite Superman, which is the Superman for All Seasons. I love it. It is incredibly heartfelt and fun to me. It dials in on what makes that character great, and it's what made me appreciate that character the most. Well, a book has came out, and like Bill said, he spoke about the first issue, but it is from it is a Superman focused book, Superman titled book, and it's by a killer creative team. Mark Russell, who I have lauded copiously on this show. Very very little does he do wrong in my book. Mike and Laura Allred, who are just an amazing dynamic visual team. If I don't know anybody that doesn't like Mike. I mean, I've met one or two people who don't appreciate him, but I don't know anybody who doesn't like acknowledge Mike Allred's just his tenacity on the page. And then Dave Sharp, who is one of the best letterers in the business, they put together a little book called Superman Space Age. And I picked up the first issue along with Bill, and Bill spoke about it. That was weird. Bill spoke about it, and we kind of got into the first issue. I had no idea what the series was ultimately going to entail, but it reminded me a little bit of what Mark Russell did with, again, conceptually at least, with his Fantastic Four book that he did. So kind of going through the mythos of the character. Tied into some of those big moments that we recognize canonically, but untethered from canon. So it's not adhering to canon completely. So he can take some liberties and kind of do what he wants to. And in this book, he does that. He kind of goes back to, at least in this series, to pre-crisis, and it's set in the late 70s and up to the mid 80s. and it kind of goes through some of the issues that deal with the Cold War and Superman's relationship to kind of these international public relations. But more so in the book, it goes into just why Superman does what he does, his relationship with Lois, his relationship with his son, his parents, Metropolis, why he is a hero and what that means, especially in the light of potential global apocalypse, where there is a being, a figure who comes in and just says, "Hey, the world's going to end, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it." So by the third book, we see the inevitability of this kind of sinking in, and it's leading to, at least in my mind, and Bill, you are way more the expert on this than I ever will be, but it's leading to kind of a crisis event. I think, to me, this is channeling just what crisis is, and it shows Superman having gotten the news from this kind of figure whose name at the time escapes me. I forget what they call him.
Pariah.
Yeah, the pariah, who steps in and just like, hey, you think you've won this, but Brainiac's he's playing 4D chess and you're playing checkers. He's 4 steps ahead of you. Don't be surprised when the Anti-Monitor steps up and shows up on your doorstep. Basically, Superman. This book, Mark Russell does an amazing job of going street level human emotions to large mega concepts in just 1 or 2 pages. This book does a really beautiful job of Superman feeling very distraught, trying to figure out how to save the world, going back home, going to Smallville, going to the family farm and talking to his dad, and saying, what would you do if you found out the world was going to end in a few days? And his dad just says, you know what? I'd be right here shucking corn. I'd spend time with your mom. I'd do everything I did because this is the life I love. It's not what I do because I feel like I have to. It's what I do because of who I am. And you would do the same. You're going to do what you do because it's who you are. And to that, this very poignant life lesson, this very father son farm moment, basically lights the light bulb above Clark's head to how to at least save humanity in the multiverse. Without spoiling too much, he knows of at least one abandoned Earth in one of the planes of the multiverse where humanity is extinct, but the Earth is thriving. And so, what he is able to do is he is able to co-opt Kryptonian technology that's with the aid of his, at least the apparition of his Kryptonian father, to capture some genetic data of humanity, and that will ultimately survive where the multiverse doesn't, or at least their place in the multiverse doesn't. To me, it was an incredibly beautiful story. It dials down exactly who Clark is and the sacrifices that he would make. The most powerful being, the creature who is most like unto a god. What sacrifices would he make to ensure the survival of the people that he grew to love? This is already taken a spot on the pinnacle of Superman stories for me. I really did just, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's different maybe than what I've seen Mark Russell do before. Mark Russell's not giving his usual cultural snark in this. He's just really dialing in and showing you that he is a diverse and adept writer, and he can give you everything that you really want. If you want his, his kind of cultural outtakes on the world we live in, that's available. But he can also write one hell of a hero story. And as Steve is showing us right now up on the screen, he's got a picture of his Batman. Number one, I love Mike Allred's Batman. Mike Allred's art was perfect. His pop art style was perfect for this type of story. And the way that he draws the Batman, it's almost like it gets back to the out, kind of a more tactical version of what we saw in that Batman television series from the 60s. He's got longer shorts. He's a little bit more clad. It's different chest bat design, but it's still very much dialed into that. And it really plays into the duality of Bruce and how he how Gotham is just a different type of animal in the world, and how trauma is cyclical. Which that's a theme in this. Everything is cyclical in the nature of humanity. So I can't encourage you to go pick this up enough. There was one point on it where a sacrifice was made that brought tears to my eyes. With Bill, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It involves the deletion of some data. I just welled up. This is a magical and incredibly fun story, and I hope everyone's able to get their hands on it, because it's good DC Comics. It is really good DC Comics.
I want your take on the ending, because I was a little confused.
Yeah, so the way that I took the ending, like I said, they're in book 3. They introduced the fact that the collapse of the multiverse is already happening, but there's at least one. I don't know what we call them. Our universe in the multiverse. There's at least one universe where there is an Earth that is essentially abandoned. It was just like our Earth, apparently, in all respects, except humanity took itself out in some way. We don't know how, it doesn't say. But the pariah says, yeah, no, this particular Earth is doing wonderfully, except for the whole lack of humanity. They're still extinct. But what Bruce does is he's able to capture the genetic code of a majority of the people on his Earth, put it into crystals. While the multiverse is collapsing, there is kind of a group of brainiacs who have made a deal with him, and they said, "Hey, look, Kryptonian, like we like you. You're a solid dude. We're going to leave a space gate open up until the very last minute. Your humanity can't survive, but you can. Come join us in our trip." Well, that's not who Superman is. But they said that there is no room for anyone else. Just you. Only you can come through. So you can't bring Lois. You can't bring your son. It's just you. Well, Superman's able to put all of the genetic code in that, and he is able to basically fit that crystal through the breach at the very last minute, and it puts it on for lack of a better word, a collision course with this abandoned Earth that maybe is not so abandoned. If one person, one being was to survive the collapse and the end of the world, an extinction event, it would be Superman. So what our universe's Superman has done is taken all the genetic code of his world and shipped it over to this other universe where
what he could recover.
Right. Yeah. So only like he it was a lot. Like he put forth a lot of, like, he kind of did the Krakoa thing. He's like, hey, I've got medicine. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to go all and get as many people like to give me their genetic information as possible. And so
I think we should back up a little bit on that, because that was a turn in Superman's effective mission, in that he went from saving the world on one end to saving the world from another end, from a medical perspective.
Right.
That with the Kryptonian technology that he has his hands on, he was able to get a genetic imprint for everybody. And then they could get these pills that apparently taste like root beer. I love those little touches. And that would help, whatever ailments that they have going forward. So that's how he garnered the genetic information, which basically means if you were an anti-vaxxer, it sucks to be you.
Which,
that particular consensus. Yeah.
Mark Russell is going to be Mark Russell at the end of the day. Like, he's going to fit those little bits in there. But what I thought was really great, Superman, they've got the Hall of Justice. He's brought together the Justice League. Flash is hilarious in this book, where he's just like, guys, I'm so fast. Like, you guys are boring and slow. He's over here building ships and bottles and like matchstick versions of the Eiffel Towers, but just really being bored. But Superman comes to a point. He's like, guys, I can't fight to save this world anymore, so I'm going to resign from the Justice League. It was all, and Wonder Woman makes a very poignant statement that, hey, we're going to be okay. The Justice League was more than one man, which I thought was great. But like Bill said, so he resigned from the Justice League, and just almost in an anti-Watchmen, or like in a similar way to the Watchmen, he disappears the way that Dr. Manhattan disappeared. Like, he was on Mars, and the world was like, where is Dr. Manhattan? The world was asking, where is Superman? And there's a lot of parallels if you look at this to the Watchmen story too that I thought were interesting, and we can get into more of that. But where Dr. Manhattan had abandoned humanity, Superman had locked himself away in the Fortress of Solitude and was doing science, like the other part of who he is, to save the world in a way that involves more brain than brawn. So which goes to the ending of the story where he's sent the last vestiges of his humanity to the only surviving being on this alter Earth, which is Superman, who he was hoping had survived. He took a chance. He didn't know. He had no contact to know. So he really did take a chance, and it paid off. And they built a monument to him, which I thought was really, really cool. And he did it in a way that it was basically like a diary for this new Superman on Earth 1,047,563Z or whatever it was called.
Okay, I was glad that I wasn't stupid and I interpreted it the right way, because that was the only part of the story that I thought the dialogue was a little bit unfocused.
Yeah.
That was the only part. Some of my takeaways, again, they're very specific. This is the Silver Age Superman going into the Bronze Age Superman. This is the pre-crisis Superman. So you have books that take place in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
And they pepper them with a lot of particular, standpoints from those periods. I absolutely loved seeing John Stewart Green Lantern with the Jerry curl. I absolutely love that. That was one of the best artistic choices I've ever seen. Oh my God, this version of the Joker's origin. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want that story again because it makes sense.
Yep.
The character that is so based in lunacy has an origin in this case where you understand where he's coming from in still in a twisted way, but you understand the germ of it. And I just thought that was brilliant. I also really liked his take on Batman. If you go to Second Coming, Mark Russell's already written, the version of Krypton where basically everyone's an asshole.
Yeah.
And this is something very different. I think in many stories you come away with Superman knowing that, I had a good relationship with my dad. I know we've all had varying things, but still, you want a dad like John Kent, know. In this story, you also want a dad like Jor-El, in this particular story. And like you said, there can't be a Mark Russell book where there isn't some stinging in there. I think the best illustration of that was Lex Luthor gets what he wants just in time for the red skies.
Yeah.
That is Mark Russell to a T.
I also really loved his so you like this version of the Joker. I have feelings and thoughts on it. I think it drives it home that anybody who is that broken has a breaking point.
Yeah.
I loved his Lex Luthor though. Just somebody who is honestly Lex Luthor is doing some not terrible things in this book, but he's doing them for capitalistic reasons. He's going to profit from them. And the fact that he tried to buy Wayne Enterprises. There's one line in here where he's trying to get something on Superman because he's like, where'd he go? Like he's doing something. What's happening here? How much is Superman worth? Well, we've done opposition research. We don't know. We can't find anything on him. In fact, there's nothing. We think he's worth negative money. Oh, well, he's already ruined himself. There's nothing for me to do. So it's just like getting in the mind of that person. I thought was really well done.
Yeah. And just as a standpoint that, I come from a situation where Superman and Batman have always been a strange combo of best friends. And I know that the last few pages were going to be, and this is confirmed in an interview that this was confirmed that this was family and friends of the All Reds and
Right.
and Russell. But I would have liked to have seen Bruce there, especially with what happened in the storyline. I just thought that would have been a nice touch.
I do too, but
and maybe he's there, we just don't see it.
Well, no, because I think he's just gone completely. Like I don't think Bruce gave his would Bruce hand over his genetics to Clark? Would he? One thing I tried to.
He certainly would pull some shit and have Alfred drink out of a glass and give it to
Oh,
him.
absolutely.
Yeah, but
See, it should have been Alfred. It should have.
yeah,
I tried to find a picture of this one double page spread that I think should be in the Smithsonian. Um, it is the end times, but it's the Justice League and the JLA and yeah, there's John Stewart with a Jerry curl. Like I absolutely love this double page spread. It does something in all the right ways. You've got it's everybody. It's just great.
and I know with the graphics that you've shown the all red covers. There are also our variant covers. So I just want to show this wonderful
Uh-huh.
Joe Quinones, Norman Rockwell
Yep.
ish cover to this, and if it's hard to see from here, but basically, Superman was changing instead of a phone booth in a photomat booth. And I guess a kid came by, and this is the barter that they used, and that's just a wonderful little moment there. So um, the all the variant covers have been really good for Space Race. Sorry, Space Age.
Space Age. Yeah.
Space Age.
But it's Space Race tracks though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very very Cold War.
And just as you had mentioned, some of the series like Superman for All Seasons and All Star Superman, I would also throw Mark Waid's Birthright in there.
Yeah.
This is a entry into that particular fraternity that absolutely is warranted for their initiation. It definitely stands as high as some of those series. So liked it. I liked it.
I've got my issues. I haven't read them yet, but they're waiting.
Why did you do your
it.
homework, Steve? You knew we were talking about this.
I know you're talking about it, but I was just I'm just sort of like I'm not going to get to these. I'll just read mine.
It does take a while, even for it is a dense read.
It is,
and
and
it is only 3 parts, but they are premium.
Like I didn't pull out 1 and 2. The third book is a $10 book, but it's a thick book.
Yeah,
like
it's thick.
She's
3 C's
with 3 C's. Yeah, right. Like
I believe they're all 72 pages. I believe.
Okay, so yeah, it's $30 for the entire series. You can probably get a discount wherever you go, but there is the collected edition. I do believe is coming out in May of 2023. So keep your eye out for that. I don't know how much it'll be, but it's gonna. I hope they do a hardcover. I'll double dip on it. It was really good.
Really cool.
I mean, I'm sure it'll be beautiful when they do come out with it. We did just get joined by David.
Hey,
David Toby.
Hello.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful book. I've got all 3 issues, and I just, I look at them. I'm like, I really need to just sit down and read all 3 now that I've got them.
And Steve, as much as I made fun of you just then, that was my experience with Miracle Man. Silver Age. I went 4 pages in. I'm like, I'm not gonna get this done.
This is not gonna this is not gonna happen tonight.
It's too much. It's too.
Even just one issue of Miracle Man Silver Age is just it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's probably some of the densest Neil Gaiman stuff I've read in a long time. Long time.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay. Pretty cool.
All right. Steven, do you have a book you would like to talk about?
I've got a book. And actually I'm
talk about it then now.
I'm doing this in in lieu of our normal comic book bear who talks about the X-Men.
Yes.
And I'm hopefully I'll do it justice. I definitely won't do the the sarcastic detail justice, of course, but our brother Brian, who is off in Japan,
and hopefully he's listening. And if he's not listening, he should be buying each of us a Superman coloring book.
He should be buying a Superman coloring books, each with each varying cover.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome that they sell them on the PX, but in the PX. But I decided, and Brian had actually, if you go back a couple episodes when he was less able to join us, he did talk about The Sins of Sinister #1, which was the introductory issue for the event that's going on right now. I would say alongside the standard X-Men series. So this is a separate series that's happening. It's a separate event. It isn't tying in directly to the current X-Men series, the various X-Men series, but there have been bits and pieces and crumbs that have been fed to the readers over the course of the past couple of years through the Krakoa saga. That something was coming and something was involving Sinister, and a lot of his actions, a lot of his craziness. And in fact, as part of the series, the Sins of Sinister series, there are 3 different books. If I can actually share my screen to show what those are. The 3 that are coming out are Immoral X-Men, Nightcrawlers, and Storm, and the Brotherhood of Mutants, which I have a poster of right back there on my big blank wall that I'm trying to cover for right now. But basically, following these series, they all essentially take place in a different time period following Mr. Sinister taking over Krakoa and taking over essentially all of mutantdom. In Nightcrawlers, I believe that's probably the furthest along. It's about 100 years in the future, and his chimeras are the sort of Nightcrawler hybrids that have formed sort of a gang, but have been freed of their control from Sinister and are going to be, um, trying to I guess find a way to break his control over not just mutantdom but all of humanity 100 years in the future. Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants takes place a few years, I want to say between 5 and 10 years after essentially the fall of Krakoa. And Immoral X-Men is about the same time frame as well. I'm going to talk about Immoral X-Men. Everything's basically coming out once a week, so you'll have, each week you'll have another one of the books in the series. Immoral X-Men is part 4. Immoral X-Men number 1 is part 4. But the latest issue of Nightcrawlers did just come out, so Nightcrawlers number 2 will be part 5, and so on and so forth. So,
Steve, is that Spider-Man in Nightcrawlers?
No. So basically, what has happened when Mr. Sinister's taken over all of mutantdom, he's also found a way to take over all of humanity as well,
Right?
and turn them all into Sinister hybrids, or at least inject some of his genetic code into all of humanity, making them immortal essentially, but also making them all Sinister. Spider-Man was one of his acquisitions, and he loves Spider-Man. He actually jokes about like, "Oh, I love that little wall-crawling fellow," and basically takes his genetic code and creates a Nightcrawler out of him, a Nightcrawler Chimera hybrid, who meets sadly an untimely end. I don't want to spoil too much. Nightcrawler's number 1, but it's very messy. But it is very interesting. It's an interesting concept, if you have somebody is evil but also ridiculous as Mr. Sinister, taking over everybody and everybody's minds and getting to play with all sorts of possibilities. That's what he comes up with. But anyway, in Immoral X-Men number 1, this series kind of focuses on the main characters from the Quiet Council: Professor X, Emma Frost, Exodus, and Hope, who have all also been compromised by Sinister and are now Sinisters. But the way that Mr. Sinister compromised them, unfortunately for him, left too much of their own freedom of personality behind. So now these other characters, the Professor X and the Emma Frost and Hope and Exodus, are a little bit too free thinking, and they've made it very clear to Sinister, essentially, in a way, kind of making their own little coup. They decided that they're going to be ruling the world alongside Sinister, essentially, rather than having him rule everything on top. Because they just are all as ambitious as he is, but they also have their own proclivities and personalities and ambitions from their original hosts. none more so than Emma Frost herself, of course. And Emma, being sort of the already very sinister and very conniving, has decided that she really does deserve to be the queen of everything. Um, within this series, one of the conceits that Mr. Sinister, how he's been able to take over everything, is that he'd been cloning Moira McTaggart, whose mutant power was every time she died, it would reset to the moment of her birth. Well, with a clone of Moira McTaggart, the clone is only as old as it was only born possibly, within the past year. So he's been resetting, by a year, sometimes 2 years each time, to try and get it right. Well, he's had it in a special lab that he'd had hidden. And unfortunately for him, at about the time that the Quiet Council revealed to him that, hey, we're just all as independent as you, he tried to escape back to his lab to try and kill another Moira so we could reset that and try the whole thing again. And somebody stole it, which you can find out about a little bit more in Storm Brotherhood of Mutants, as well as the Nightcrawler series. But while he escaped from the Quiet Council to try and find his lab, um, basically Emma Frost split everybody up to go and look at all the potential little hidey places that he could be. And she, of course, follows him to where she knows he is, which is Westchester, one of his original labs. And she basically reveals to him that, your plan's great, but I'm really going to be the one on top. I'm going to be the one left behind. And it's perfect. She's been playing him this whole time. She's been playing everybody else this whole time. And is starting to put her plan in place to kind of string everybody else along. And she's been very clear about it to Mr. Sinister himself. It's like, you're only surviving as long as I want you to survive. But keep in mind, I'm still the one in charge. I love this series. It's written here. It's written here by Kieran Gillen, of course, with Paco Medina on art, as well as Walden Wong and Victor Olazaba. I think it's a beautiful book. It's great. It's funny. It's got that really snarky sense of humor that's been popping up over the past couple of years. Every time you read like a Sinister, his dialogue or any kind of newsletters that they used to have in the early days of Hoxpox. Yep. I think this is a really cool concept. It's a fun concept. It's ridiculous. It's extremely dark. I mean, basically, it's a future where, I'm sorry, humanity's been essentially wiped out or rewritten so that they're all Mr. Sinister. All of your heroes, the Avengers, have either been compromised or murdered. All of the mutants left on Erico got completely destroyed, leaving very few people behind. Left alive.
the way that he annihilated Erico, that was painful.
I mean, the whole thing is painful. It's just you get to see basically all of the people that you love either killing everyone else or being horribly destroyed and murdered. It's really it's depressing, but at the same time, thankfully they inject a lot of humor into it because it is Mr. Sinister, and Mr. Sinister, as much of a villain as he is, he's a
campy.
dandy prick. Yeah, he's a campy dandy prick. He loves his capes. He loves his capes.
Sassy Sinister is the best thing to come out of the Hickman revamp. Like just love it.
And they're all sassy. They're also very sassy. I love it. And what really gets me is that I think the way that they're planning and plotting all of these crossovers in the 3 different separate series, including the Sins of Sinister, headline event series, is that Sinister is the only one who can really beat Sinister.
Yeah.
And he's really good at creating his own downfall constantly. Every single thing that he has is setting up his failure, but it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to, how everything's going to be screwed up. We know that this is being kind of kept outside of standard X-Men continuity because, and of course there is that eventual thing that's going to happen, because of course he has those Moira clones. At some point, it's going to be reset, and all of the shit is going to go away. Mostly, I'm sure there'll be some remainder kind of craziness, but it's just, this is a playground that they're playing in, to make it as crazy as they can possibly make it, given a campy villain like this, who's now basically made 7 billion versions of himself. And Immortal X-Men really is a very interesting perspective on that, in how Sinister can defeat himself, or how he can best himself in that series. And Nightcrawlers, I think, is great because that takes place 100 years in the future. So even 90 years past that. So of course he hasn't been defeated. So something doesn't go well for the Immortal X-Men, possibly. But it is very interesting to see the ride that Kieran Gillen here is taking us on, as well as the rest of the team that's working on the Sinister books. So it's a lot of fun. I recommend it.
All right, cool.
I don't know, Bill, have you been reading any of these?
Nope. I'm not reading any X books right now.
Oh wow, yeah.
I'm barely reading any Marvel right now.
And
yeah. 2 of the series I'm reading stink. But I'm in it for the haul for some reason. Just waiting for Avengers to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you.
Just waiting for Avengers to wrap up, but I'm too far in to not see it to the end.
Same.
And Dan Slott's Spider-Man series has been a huge disappointment.
I'm not reading that, but
yeah.
The X stuff, like, I'm not reading a lot of the X stuff. I'm reading some of it though, and it's like what I'm reading is really good. I mean, it's done the X-Men thing, right? Like, it's too spread out. There's too much to read. I don't have time, which you don't have to. So just pick and choose what you want. I need to go get caught up on the X-Force book. I heard that's really good. I want to read that. But what I really like about this series is the way they've capitalized off of Hoxpox, and like they've explained the Chimera for the future. So again, you wonder how much of it is gonna be lasting, and how much of it is going to get wrapped up and changed. But I just need more Cyclops cat.
Well, speaking of Cyclops, how Sinister really loves his chimeras. There's a very interesting section in Immortal X-Men where he reveals his gang of Cyclopses that are very quickly defeated by Emma, by Sinister Emma. She just basically is like, come on. I've been able to like manipulate a Scott Summers.
All the Summers brothers.
Here's a whole bunch of Summers. Just it's great.
If I can just ask a non-X-Men Marvel question, a book I abandoned after the first issue, I was just wondering how that was doing there, Caleb, which was Namor, The Conquered Shores.
It just wrapped up. It's a 5-issue miniseries. I actually really liked it. It reminded me a lot of what Peter David has done in some of his other stuff, with revisiting this kind of futuristic version of so what Peter David did with Maestro, for instance.
Okay.
It really did remind me that it's different. I forget who's the creative team on that. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know.
I thought it was really cool. They dive back into
Christopher Cantwell is the writer, and the artist Pasquale Ferry.
Yeah. Okay. So I like Pascal Ferry. Period. I've great artist.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It's an older Namor. It's at the end of the world. It dives back into the relationships that he made with the invaders. So it's a cool little mini series. I've enjoyed it.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to switch over to one of the other bigger publishers for both of my books this time. And it's not DC. I was not in the mood to read.
I'm the DC champion today.
You're the DC. You can have it for one crown there. That's okay.
It's just one little tiara.
Well, let me tell you, baby, that crown's coming back to me next time.
Oh, I don't even want the crown. I just want to polish the jewelry.
Okay. So the first Image book I will talk about is Local Man #1. And this plays with a lot of Image concepts, basically from its inception. Steve, I think that's the only graphic you have, but if you want to just put the camera on me, this is actually a flip book for the backup, but I actually read the
Yep.
backup first because chronologically I'm supposed to. So you see, here we go, Local Man. Let's do it at the same time, and then we flip. See,
Uh,
and we have a very image of the '90s looking cover, and it's very appropriate because within the backup, which I read first, is a story called "Baptism by Fire," and it details Third Gen, a super team that the lead character of Local Man, Crossfire, is part of. And let me just, sorry, Crossjack for the audio. Crossjack is part of. And the names that are populated within here of his fellow team members: Air Raider, Softcore, Cutting Edge, Big Island, Camo Crusader, who's chosen as the savior of Christian morality and the right to bear arms.
Oh, you have muted yourself. You are mute. Oh, there it
Okay,
is.
how am I now?
You're good.
Okay, great. And, the villains that they face at the same time are also just as imagey in their names: Painkiller, Fright Side, Merciless, Superio, and the Hodag. Uh, so that's basically the starting point. Is a very very Cyberforce, Wildcats, Young Blood type of team. This book is written by Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks. I think I'm not exactly sure what the breakdown is with who did the art where. Caleb, do you know? Okay, so the main story was the farming. Okay, here we go. That makes sense there. So what happens in Local Man number one? So basically the flashback stuff, at least in this first issue, the art's by Tim Seeley, and what we assume is the present time in the town of Farmington. Uh, that's art by Tony Fleeks. And in the story, Crossjack, who was a member of this team, is now no longer a member of the team. And he did something bad, but we don't know exactly what it is yet. We have hints about it, but through the story, we just know that he's basically the shame of the United States. So without too many options, he goes back home to live with his parents, at least for a little while. The parents are obviously very evangelical types, and they are shamed by him. He gets to a point where he just can't take it with their derision at home, so he decides to go out, and that was a bad move too. So he goes to a local bar. He's not met with a lot of kindness. And then he's met with one of his old adversaries, the Hodag, who apparently came from the same hometown. Hodag raises a lot of shit in the bar. They toss out Crossjack, and Hodag gets arrested. In the meantime, uh, Crossfire, Jack is his name, he meets somebody who's an old flame, and she's now married. So there isn't really the stereotypical like romantic entanglement off the bat. And that was something really refreshing to see. I hope you agree with me, Steve, that these were just two people talking on a one-on-one basis, and it didn't have that complication of a sexual relationship. I like that touch a lot. Um, but as things progress with that, again, Jack is kicked out of the bar, and then Third Gen makes an appearance. And they're not there to welcome him back. They're telling him, hey, Crossjack is the property of Third Gen LLC. You cannot be a superhero in public. You cannot take the name. And obviously, all the other members of his former team are very frosty to him. So it's really making you think what the hell went down, that he would be tossed by the team and become, a pariah. As I mentioned, Hodag is sent to jail, and in a really nice parallel storyline, in the in the Farmington story, We see Jack effectively walking home. The dog Pepper, that's from that's his parents' dog, is somehow out wandering. He almost kills Pepper by accident because he's throwing his cross jacks. uh, and we also see Hodag in jail, but something happens, and it's pretty brutal to his former
Yeah.
series. So we're gonna, that's I'm certain that that's gonna be the main meat of issue 2. But for this kind of territory, that's like a pastiche of various Image issues. I mean, we've seen that basically, since the first few years. I mean, that's an element in Kingdom Come. We've seen it time and time again, but they did address it in a very, very fresh way in this particular book. I liked this book a lot more than I thought I would, and I basically bought the first issue out of curiosity, and I'm going to stick with it at this point. So, Local Man #1. Flip,
Yeah, I
flip book, flip book.
flippy. I liked it too. You know, I was one of those people buying, or one of those kids buying every issue #1 that came out from Image in '92, and they all
Did
they
you
all
buy
essentially look
Union
like
#1?
this.
Did you buy
Which one?
Union #1?
I probably did.
Did you
I
buy
don't know.
Tribe #1?
I,
Oh yeah, I actually have
I
like
have
3
many,
copies of
many
Tribe.
copies of that.
It kept
Many,
popping up.
many
I don't know,
copies.
like, how I got so many copies. I didn't buy them. They just kind of showed up.
Oh no, it never fails. Occasionally, I'll get a call just randomly. Somebody will pop up. Hey, so and so said you're a comic book person that you wanted, like you would do that. I've got like 2 short boxes or some long boxes like I found in my attic. I need to get rid of. Yeah, sure. I'll give you
All
30 bucks,
Tribe.
40 bucks for it. There's a copy of Johnson Stroman Tribe in there,
Oh
if
yeah.
not 3.
Oh yeah.
Like it does not fail.
Yep.
Every time. But the great thing about this, and especially, you know, I have this cover of Local
Uh-huh.
Man. So it's the one where it's like it's the flip book, but then it's the comic book
Yeah.
next to basically his dinner. Um that it's definitely more poignant than I was expecting it to be.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
even
absolutely.
with Hodag, even when Hodag
Oh,
shows up,
yes, yes.
something's going on with him,
Yeah.
and he's trying to talk to Crossjack, but Crossjack's just in like
And
fight
talking
mode.
about him about where he's been, and that was
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
there was something there that he was really like. There's something that I need to tell you, but it's like, nah, okay, I'm just gonna fight you. And then what happens to Hodag afterwards? You're like, oh, this is serious. Maybe he knew that something was coming.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
that's where Tony excels, though, is in those moments as a writer. I mean, so
yeah,
so you look at his art and stuff, and Tony's probably most well known as far artistically for his My Little Pony work. But if you read
Stray
the book,
Dogs.
yeah, if you read Stray Dogs that he did with Trish Forstner, it is incredibly poignant. It's incredibly heartfelt. He does a very good job, almost subtly driving home these really human moments
Mhm.
that so I love Tim Seeley. That's not to undercut
Yeah.
Tim
Yeah, yeah.
Seeley stuff. I actually prefer Tim Seeley's horror stuff a lot more than I've done, like have his superhero stuff or some of his other stuff. Like obviously there's the big ones, but even his like Vampire the Masquerade that he helped with, that to me is some really good Tim Seeley work. So I'm excited. I haven't read this yet. It's in my box to pick up. Hopefully I will swing by my local comic store tomorrow and grab it. But I am very excited about this. I think it's something different for Tony that I'm curious to see what he does with.
Tim Seeley
Yeah.
is also responsible for my favorite gay line ever in comics, and that's in
Nice
the
shoes, wanna fuck?
no,
What?
that's in the Grayson run, where Dick is using the software that disguises him.
Yes. Yep.
Midnighter and no,
Yep.
so he's like, I know
I'd
that ass
recognize that ass anywhere.
That is
But
true.
I have to say though, this definitely feels more like a Tim Seeley book than it does a Tony Fleecs book.
Mm.
Um, Maybe as we go on, it might get a little different flavor. Um, but it's also eh, it does feel like a unified voice, though. I have to
Mhm.
say, it doesn't feel like sometimes you definitely feel a book that's two writers.
Yeah.
sometimes it definitely feels like that there's compromises that
Yeah.
one has a bigger voice. That I'm not saying that that's here. So
One
welcome.
thing, David also agreed. Midnight, you're recognizing Nightwing's ass. Yes,
Yeah.
that is a moment. He also did mention this too before we get too far away from it. DC champion Caleb Alexander McKenzie Zenowitz.
Oh my God, that's a scary mashup.
We're
Whoa.
raising the children Jewish.
Though neither of us are.
I converted.
And if you could only do an Irish accent, I'd be happy.
I just can't. That was, I've tried so hard.
I try so hard.
A little background. I have a friend that told me that people from the South, the American South, cannot do an Irish accent. And Caleb kind of proved it in our pre-show.
I
So,
see. I don't think I proved it. I'm the wrong person. I don't know. Like I said on the show,
yeah.
I don't know that I don't even do an American accent. Like I couldn't do the like, darling. I could not do the Mid Atlantic accent if I wanted to be in the movies. Like I have a terrible case of South mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just a thing. So I'm not like there are probably some other Southerners who can do it. I'm just
Yeah.
not the one. I can't. I
Steve
don't do a
has a
good Australian.
very, very region-free accent.
He does.
You do.
Steve sounds like he's from a very particular place in like Tri-County in Pennsylvania that everybody shoots for.
Pennsylvania has very strong accents.
Well, yeah, Philly does. Yins.
Well, no, but
So-
Pittsburgh does too.
Pittsburgh
Yeah.
does, but also where my mom was from, because she was right on the Delaware line, and that's sort of like that outside of Philly through Delaware
So
and
she says where it's
Baltimore area.
like she'll say towel instead of towel, like that.
Al,
Yeah.
she's lost a lot of her accent. My family from that side that's still there, yeah, immediately you know exactly where they're from.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
And God knows I can't hide the New Jersey. So
I think she still says
Jersey?
water. She does still say water though. So
Yeah.
that is one thing that she does. But I lost that.
that was a sneeze that I had.
There was a
I like.
if you were watching this, you got a show on the
Damn it,
on the
damn it.
live stream. That was a
I like that
forceful sneeze.
Steve and I could have covered and just kept going for the audio, but we're like, no, let's pregnant pause and we're gonna watch
There
the
it
sneeze happen.
You just had to watch the sneeze.
Speaking of, I want to apologize to any of the listeners that if I sound nasally. I did some yard work this weekend and my sinuses are killing me right now.
Yeah.
The pollen in Arkansas is starting to do its thing and it's terrible on me.
You guys don't have the Bradford pears, do you? 'Cause
Yes.
those are
Yeah.
evil. Evil cum trees.
Springtime in Arkansas, it is literally just yellow air. Like there is a yellow haze on. Like the cars will be covered. It's like a dust storm, but it's not dust. It's just tree sex everywhere. And
ours
Yeah.
was in Charlotte. It was worse, but it was green. So it was like green. Everything was just covered in green. So like it
Yeah.
looked like you had just molded your car overnight. And then of course when the oak starts going, and those are the squigglies, I think.
Yep.
I think they're the squigglies.
You have little things.
Forget it. Forget it. It's gross everywhere. Disgusting.
Okay. Well, I have
Filth.
another image book to talk about, and I'm going to do that right now.
Do it.
Yay!
And this book is it's nice to see this writer writing again because it's been a little bit of a break, and that's Peter Tomasi, and he is writing Blood Tree from the Mad Ghost, which is Jeff Johns' imprint over at Image.
Mhm.
The artist is somebody I've never heard of, Maxim Simic. I don't know if you gentlemen have ever heard. This cover is not him. This is Christian Alame, who did the cover, and I believe is going to be the main cover artist for the entire run. Um, and there's also Gary Frank and Brad Anderson doing covers. Sorry about that. So one thing I really like about this story, and I don't know if this is going to tie into the other Mad Ghost books like Junkyard Joe and Geiger. I think time remains to be seen, but the really interesting story about this book is it's New York as fuck. And it also is one of those stories where it proves that New York is not just Manhattan. And I really like seeing that as somebody who grew up in this area. So, what happens in this story? Well, we're in New York City and we're at one of the icons of New York City, the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And out of nowhere, an angel falls out of the sky. Now, it turns out that this angel is not really an angel, it's somebody who had been kidnapped and had wings sewed on them. There are two plainclothes detectives the um, that are attending the parade, and let me get these names right here. I thought I had them up hand because they're very New York names. So we have uh, hold on a second, guys. One second.
While he's doing that, the cover of this looks very much like those AMA books.
Oh, the AWA books, the
Yeah, our
artist,
AWA,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, and maybe you know what? Who was that cover artist again? Alamy?
Simic,
Alamy.
No, Shimich is the yeah Alamy. I want to say that Alamy's
Mr.
actually
Holla.
done some covers for some of the either the Resistance
yeah.
titles or the others for AWA. Maybe Hit Me. That's it's definitely a design that I'm
It's
familiar with,
got
but
that vibe.
yeah, but very cool. I did not see this at my LCS, so I probably would have picked it up if I did though, because one, Tomasi, but then
Yep.
two, this is a cool cover.
Yep.
And
Um,
I am one of those dicks that does judge a book by its cover if it's really picked up.
I apologize for that. A very important email from work came in at 10:59 at night. Sorry about that. Had to at least read it. So the lead detective is Dario Azario, and he has a partner, Maria. And again, they're on site because they need a lot of security for the parade. What luckily happened for in this circumstance for him and for his profile within the New York City Police Department was he pushed some dignitaries, the mayor and some other high-ranking officials out of the way. So all of a sudden he's a hero cop because the angel didn't fall on them. Um, but that's not the end of the angel story. There's another kidnapping, and this time it's a woman, and the next time again involving Dario Zario, that there's an angel falling out of the sky, and this time it's at Yankee Stadium. So they notice some strange things between the two detectives and the coroner about these what appears to be a very distorted serial killer that's taking these like tremendous tremendous steps to stage these crimes. um, There also is a subplot with his son, and the son appears to be killing his own pets, and that's kind of a very dark place. But it's strange how the both the mother and father kind of dismissed us, and I think this ties into something bigger. But this was a book. It did not feel like a horror book. It did not feel like a crime drama. It did not feel like a police procedural. Yet there's elements of all three of that in there. Has a very distinctive feel. I'm very happy that there are some creators that have, I assume, either on their own steam or some other unfortunate situation that are, have not been part of mainstream comics for a few years, but apparently through Mad Ghost, they will be. So this is one especially Steve, I think you would really want to check this out. Blood Tree #1 from Image.
Okay, yeah. I'll take a look for it. I'm sure Sailfish might have it. I know, or my LCS could order
Yeah.
some copies for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Do you
All
know if
right.
it's going to be like a just the usual 5 issue, like
I
5 issue
believe it's.
series?
I believe it is solicited for 6. I
6? Okay.
believe. Yep.
Ooh.
I'll take a look while you're preparing your book. So, Steve, tell us about something else you're reading that you're digging.
Well, let me take that off the screen. So one of the other things that I have been reading recently that I think is very interesting is a book by, if I can pull it up here. It's by Christopher Sebela or Sabella. I've really enjoyed a lot of his writing. I love following him on Twitter. He's one of the few, the few Twitter accounts that I can stand because it's fun and he has pictures of his dog and it's very cute. Um, and I have been looking forward to this book since it was first announced, and I was able to pick up a copy the other day. And let me see if it will allow me to share the cover with you. Do, 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 do. There we go. And that is God Fell #1. Not God Fall, but God Fell. I had so many people trying to correct me on this one. It's like, no, no, no. It's God Fell #1. The reason why it's called God Fell #1 is because a god has already fallen at the very beginning of this book. And what's really great about this is it kind of reminds me a little bit of the series Fair Lady that came out a few years ago,
Oh yeah,
where do you remember Fair Lady? Did either of you read it?
I did. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. Um, so in it, there's basically this giant in Fair Lady. There was this giant sort of creature or celestial being or something that is fall into the ground, and every little bit and body part around it has been turned into either a kingdom or a town or something like that. God Fell kind of has a similar concept in parts, but it really focuses mostly on the main character here, who is a warrior for the rule, one of the major warring empires here in this world. And her name is Zanzi. And Zanzi is one of the she's just a superlative soldier. She's murdered thousands upon thousands of enemy soldiers throughout this warring campaign. Um, and she's just about what she thinks she's about the end of the war. The war is almost over and done, and she's done all she can. And of course, the ruler sends his son, the king sends his son to just kind of say, "Hey, we've got a couple more battles to go, so don't think about heading home too soon." Well, she says, "Fuck that," and she decides she's like, "I'm done. I've killed enough people. I've done enough war. I just want to go home, see my husband, see my kids. I haven't seen them in a couple of years. I'm done with this shit." And so she steals a horse and she heads the other direction, back towards where she started. And of course, has to go through all of these territories that her army, uh, over the past couple of years, has laid siege to, laid waste to, murdered thousands of civilians and soldiers, and just really tromped their way through as a giant invading force. So of course it's not very it's a little hostile to her, but she's a badass. She makes it pretty far, and encounters what looks like an elven girl named Neth, who pleads with her to kind of take her with her, because she's making a pilgrimage. She needs to go back in the direction of the God Fell. And like I'd mentioned, a giant celestial being of some sort has fallen and basically just landed in the middle of the land, and people have been flocking to it. Sort of really, there's almost a carnival atmosphere, but people from all over the planet, all of the different kingdoms, including enemies of each other, have all been sort of making pilgrimage to this body, to this giant corpse, in hopes of power, finding enlightenment, finding truth, finding just money, something, some way to exploit this for their own gain. And unfortunately for Zanzi, the easiest way to get back home is through. this giant god corpse thing that she's just sort of like, well, I guess we got to go through it because people have been excavating their way through this giant body. And that's where we leave up. She and Neth are standing at the entrance of the foot and need to make their way all the way through it to the head to get past it so that Zanzi can get home. It's going to be a big ride. This book it's beautiful. The artwork by and I just got Ben Hennessy with colors by Triona Farrell, letters by Jim Campbell. I mean, it's a gorgeous book. It's brightly colored. It's visceral. There's a lot of blood, but it's done in a very beautiful way, and the characters are so unique. And I just love the design of this book, and the writing is a lot of fun, especially Zanzi's dialogue. She's basically Caleb. I think you'd really enjoy Zanzi because she's very much a female Conan in the way that she talks to other people and the way she talks to herself. Her internal monologue is like, I am going to get home and I will destroy everything that gets in my way, but I don't really care because it's really fantastic. But I'm looking forward to this. It's coming out. It's out monthly from Vault, and I believe it is going to be about 5 issues at least for this volume. So, Godfell, #1 just released.
I'm gonna have to go pick that up because I did not get it, which is like I usually get most of what Vault puts out. Vault is one of my favorite smaller publishers.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the first non-horror book from Vault that I've bought in a while. So
yeah. Speaking of, the Giga finally finished. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I have my my Giga #5. I think it was the gap between 4 and 5 was what
it was
a year,
long. Yeah, it was like
a
a year. Yeah, it was long.
Yeah. So, but I have it. It's ready. It's ready to be read at some point.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Bill, you were saying something, but you're muted.
I was going to say we have one more book to talk about, and it's yours. But it sounds like you had something else you wanted to say before.
Oh no, I was going to roll into my book. Just I had an amazing segue plan, but that didn't work. So I'm just going to
roll in.
Yeah. So, and actually, I'm going to be real fast about this, just because it's a lot of fun, but there's not a lot of meat on the bone to talk about. It's just a really fun comic. It's just simple stuff. And it's a new anthology series that comes from a publisher called Sumerian. And it's called How I Became a Shoplifter. And I've sent Steve some stuff, so he's going to pull it up. And like I said, this is an anthology. All of the stories are written by Tom Brayfogle, but he's got different artists and colorers and letterers who work on each one. It is, as the first cover says, it is about these 2 boys mainly who are growing up in the mid-90s. It's the final generation before technology took over. And it really is just a 90s kid story. It's about 2 punk kids who get into shenanigans, doing stuff. The first story says, we committed our first felony when we were 14. And it's just, spray painting a house for Christmas, messing up the front yard, taking Polaroid pictures and stuff. And the book is really a series of coming of age stories, if for lack of a better way to put it. But it's about liking girls, and it's about listening to music, and it's about getting into trouble, and it's about growing up, unsupervised in a world where cell phones aren't a thing. And really all you want to do is try to get laid and smoke pot and listen to some good tunes. So like I said, there's not a lot of meat on the bone, but each one seems to have, I say that there's a lot of meat on the bone for just enjoyability, but it's not super deep, if that's what I'm intending to say. Each book has, I think, 3 different stories in it. They're really fun. Lots of mid-90s cultural references. My favorite story from the first one is chapter 2. It's called Ethan's Secret. It is absolutely hilarious. Ethan is one of the boys on here that the book focuses on, and he and his buddy, they have had a crush on these 2 neighborhood girls forever, and so they're finally hanging out, and they're going to get their wish. They're like, hey, look, we'll do. They only really invited us over because we promised to rent some movies from Blockbuster and buy pizza. But one of the girls says, hey, can you want to buy some pot Um, and they're like, well, in reality, they don't know any pot dealers, right? But the one guy's like, oh, my dealer's out of town. And she's like, oh, no worries. My sister buys from this dude across the street. He speaks some weird juggle language. I don't know what it is, vernacular, but just maybe you go score some from him. And the guy says, wait, what? Um, and so they go knock on this dude's door, and it's even the way that it's written, not being it's a comic, right? You can tell this is a white dude using trying to use hip hop language, and just the way he's doing it. And they very quickly realize that this guy's a juggalo. But apparently one of the boys speaks the language, and uh, he's like, oh, don't worry, I got this. We got the cheddar for the smeshmat. He starts speaking this juggalo language, and the other guy's appalled. The other friend is like, are you a closet ICP fan? Have you been this whole time and you didn't tell me? And he's like, no, it's even worse than that. My mom got in trouble when I was a kid, and she was a little bit of a junkie, so she got into ICP, and it saved her. And to make matters worse, my grandparents saw how well she was doing, and then they became juggalos too. So I was secretly ran by juggalos, secretly raised by them. And there's these really hilarious bits, like the one Steve's got up on the screen, where they're just talking, and the one guy who's not a Juggalo fan, they're walking down the street, and he's like, look, you can't use that language, you don't know the power of it. It's really quirky, really funny, again surrounding a lot of music. The second book is more of the same. It's these kids getting into trouble, trying to rebel. And my favorite story from this book, they raise the money to they buy themselves some fake IDs, or at least one of them does, and they're going to go get a tattoo because that's what they got the fake ID for. But the problem is the local these guys are big music heads, right? And I can respect that. I was kind of the same. And they are going to get music-based tattoos, but the local tattoo parlor has a no band tattoos rule. Kind of like a lot of places will do the "I'm not going to tattoo your girlfriend's name on you" kind of situation. But they're clever, right? So the one is a little bit of an artist, and so he draws in code. He does this really cool thing, which presents itself as a single-page spread, that he's going to get a chess piece, and it's all of these different symbols of all of these bands that he wants to check out. And this page actually has the code, right? This page actually shows you who all of these bands are. I mean, some of them are easy. The guy spray painting a FX with a cross through it, it's no FX, right? There's the cheerleaders that are local. They have local on them, and they're the shape of an H, local H. Some of them are less more conspicuous. My favorite ones are the three batteries here at the bottom. It's Alkaline Trio, right? It's just really clever. So he's going to get this tattooed on his chest, but more so than that, he's going to get a tattoo over here on his arm of himself with a little chest tattoo. It's going to be a meta thing. Ultimately, he does not get to do what he wants to do. The parents are driving by and see the misfit friend standing outside and realize that some shenanigans are happening. But I got a big kick of it. It's really fun. I love anthologies. I love things like these that are rooted in my childhood. I'm a early 2000s kid. It's right after kind of my area or my era of uh, just adolescence. So really dug it. Super fun. Again, if you're looking for a lot of nuance, this is not what you're going to find. It's great books of a time, and really, really well done. So go check this out. Again, I think this is the only books from Sumerian I've gotten, unless I'm just mistaken. But I was pleasantly surprised. It's good stuff.
All right, I have a
I like
question.
the
I have a
Jimmy
question,
world.
Caleb. Is there any kind of Christian bent to the stories? Because Brayfogle is a former member of Reliant K, which is a Christian rock group.
I did not know that. No, I know Reliant K. Yeah, I've got some of their stuff. There's not. If anything, there's more of a rebellious thing against that. Like there's the
Okay.
story in the
'Cause
first one.
He was also in a band called what the Secondhand Serenade, and that's definitely a secular group. Um, So is the new name of
Good
Behemoth.
little,
Sumerian's
yeah.
the new
David
home of
mentioned
Behemoth Comics.
Sumerian.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Sumerian is the new
Yeah.
name
So
of
I
Behemoth
was just
Comics.
wondering
So
if that was
yeah,
possibly a component there. Yeah. So
No,
because I have
there
heard.
it's very secular. So I like, yeah,
okay. Yeah.
it's very
And the only
secular.
reason I know this is because I was wondering if he was Norm Brayfogel's son. So I did a little digging on him. Um, okay.
He's another Brayfogle. Um,
All
but
right.
yeah,
Cool.
thanks, David, for the fact about
Yeah.
Sumerian.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at my music anthologies over there. Uh, I'm in one. I wrote a story on one. So
yeah,
You
yeah,
sure did. I have copies of that.
you do. Cool.
Z's
anthology.
Yeah,
copies.
that's my little tribute to Bad Religion in there.
Yeah. No, I would love to. I think it's probably drawn digitally. I would love to own the
Yeah.
page of the tattoo on this because I mean, it's just there's like Marilyn Manson is literally Charles Manson and Marilyn Monroe dancing. Corn is a cornstalk.
Yeah.
The dead Kennedys are literally the Kennedys, but they're ghosts jumping on the
Yeah.
trampoline. I think Alkaline Trio is great. There's a sign that
I
says
did also
37 plus
catch
4.
yeah, I did catch Garbage and the Presidents of the United States of
Yep.
America there. I did catch those.
Garbage, Silver Chair, Third Eye Blind, Flaming Lips, The Cranberries, Queens of the Stone Age is really cool. Smoking Popes and Bad Religion both have the things. Reliant K, that green car, that actually makes sense now. The green car is supposed to represent Reliant K.
Yeah, it's a K car.
The
Yeah,
Vandals.
it's a green K
Uh,
car.
yep.
Jimmy Eat World is my
So
favorite little doodle on that one. I love that one.
All right,
the
cool.
Meat Puppets is one of my favorites. There's a little meat puppet in there. I thought that was cute. So,
What's
yeah,
the price
I
point on
think this
that?
is it's not expensive. It is, let me see, $3.99.
Oh,
So
great.
Oh, really?
Great.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I'm gonna check that out. There
He's wearing a t-shirt instead of ACDC, it's ADHD.
ADHD.
So
Nice.
no, it's super fun.
Oh,
It's
we're coming up
lowbrow. It's
almost
just
on
really
yeah,
neat.
cool. We're coming up on almost 2 hours, so we're gonna start wrapping this show up. And I believe some of us have geek gets in the sense of all of us this time around.
Shocking.
So Steve, who normally is like, I didn't get anything, got something. So why don't you show what it was?
So, I know Bill and I have talked about the joys of Ollie's, the joys and the sadness of Ollie's. So occasionally you can find some amazing things, and other times you leave disappointed and sad, and yet also have spent $20 on weird secondhand candy. Anyway, um, so the last time I did go to Ollie's, I found a bit of a treasure. They've actually been having some other big DC Treasury editions pop up occasionally on some stores. And the one that I found was the Silver Age Legion of Superheroes Volume 3 Omnibus, which is gorgeous. It is a $100 book that is only $30 at Ollie's, so 70% off for this. Beautifully reprinted um, issues of Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. There's also Action Comics, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Just a lot of really great stories in here from the Silver Age. And beautifully reprinted, recolorized. Everything just looks really fantastic in this. It is a solid, beautiful Treasury edition. And Bill, I think you've got one that's similar.
Well, look at here. I have
Ooh.
from Ollie's, but not from my Ollie's because my Ollie's suck. This is the Golden Age Green Arrow Omnibus number Volume 1.
Golden Age
The
one. Oof.
SRP on this is $125, but the Ollie's price was $34.99. Now, I didn't get this myself because, as I said, my local Ollie's suck. Got two of them in driving distance, and they suck. But not every Ollie's has the same uh, not every Ollie's has the same type of inventory on
Right.
hand. And
Hmm.
through our friend Trevor Williams, who may be in some of the comic related forums as Trevor Plop, was able to get me a copy of this one that I've wanted since it was published, but was not paying $125 for. And it recounts all of Ollie's early stories from 1941 onward into, like, I think 48 or 49. And on top of this being a beautiful, again, recolored and just a beautiful package, only 3 of these stories have been reprinted before. This is the first time these stories have been printed again since the 40s. So very
Yeah.
happy to have this. That's my Geekette.
I absolutely adore that cover.
Mm.
So
Oh
it's
yeah, so this is I think this is this Dave Bullock?
I
Um
thought so. I thought
yeah,
we yeah
there's a couple of artists that do Darwin Cook-ish
yeah.
looks. Oh no,
Mhm.
this is actually J Bone.
J Bone. That's
Oh,
it.
it is
It's
Okay.
J
J
Yeah.
Bone.
Bone.
But you will see a lot of Mike Cho and you will see a lot of Dave Bullock doing those covers as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but still keep some of the kind of conceptual continuity involved. I also received a gift from a friend this week. It's not a book, it's actually a board game. My buddy and yours, Flippa Dippa, Mr. Felipe
Oh,
Garza,
look at that.
sent me
That looks
a
gorgeous.
copy of Gargoyles Awakening.
Oh, is it a
It is
game?
a, yeah, it's a board game. It's a card game. Sorry, I've tried to see if I can do this with it being all encompassed. So has a little bit of
Ooh.
everything. So we have not cracked it open yet. I'm very excited. It comes with 6 figures. There's 4 different episodes, so different schemes that you can play. 5 3D buildings. You work together as all of your favorite members to protect Manhattan from Xanatos and Demona in 4 different episodes. And I'm very excited about this because I love some gargoyles. Some people have had the audacity to besmirch the Gargoyles comic series right now, and those people are no longer my friends because we don't talk to them anymore. We don't need that negativity in my life. It is brilliant and it is wonderful. It's perfect in every single way. Now, it's in all honesty, the Gargoyle series is okay. It's just kind of mid, but it's still fun. I'm happy about it. So, but that's my geek get.
That's
Nice.
awesome. That is that. I mean, that's gorgeous. Ravensburger makes some great models and some great games. So
And shout out to Flippa since we're talking about him. He and his bride and
Oh,
his
Jesus, that
son
house. Jesus.
just got to move into their dream house. They started building it like 18 months ago, and finally got through and got to move in. It's been a process. As a friend, I've been along with him for the ride, just seeing all the updates and stuff. It is insane. When I tell you this is somebody's dream house, that they dream big. So good for them. But the house is gorgeous, and they're just really good people. And they're not too far from me, so every once in a while I get to see them. So I miss them. But thank you.
Also, I think we should adopt a particular phrase on this show and maybe in
Okay.
real life. Um, which is comes from a clip from Shrinking, because you mentioned, Caleb, that there are people that aren't going to be in your life because they were poo-pooing the Gargoyles book, and we mentioned some other people that were what were we saying, that they were putting down something else. We mentioned that before. Oh, the Deborah Ann Wall wasn't in.
Oh yeah.
So I think from this point on, we should be using "Eat a Dick, Pam," um,
Yeah.
eat a dick, Pam.
which is a
Hey,
reference
Pam.
from
No,
Shrinking,
no.
which I
Hey, Pam.
no, hey Pam. Oh, okay,
You
eat a
don't.
dick, Pam.
Okay, eat a dick, Pam.
I think that's a novel way of addressing people that are promoting positions that we don't appreciate.
Is that from The Office?
That's from
No, it's
Shrinking.
from. Yeah.
Shrinking?
That'd be
Okay.
really funny if that was from The Office.
No. Oh, shrinking. Shrinking is definitely. Oh, yeah. It's an amazing show. It's on Apple Plus.
And it did get
Gotcha.
renewed for the second season today.
Yes. So
Yes.
excited. It's by the same people who made Cougar Town, if you remember
Okay.
Cougar Town, and a couple other series like I think Scrubs, and it's got some of the same actors pop up occasionally.
Yep.
But
But
it's great, great cast, great writing.
Okay, so you write these down. Eat a dick, Pam.
Bill's gonna see me comment "eat a dick, Pam" on one of the forums that we're in, and he's just gonna die.
Eat
No
a
one
dick,
else is gonna know
Pam,
why.
and met the deck. Okay.
Met the deck. Met the deck.
Who did you meet? I met the deck.
Met the deck.
All right. All right, we're going to start wrapping this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, the last segment is something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. We do something very similar where we spotlight something, effectively woof at it. And that something may be a comic book, it may be a TV program, a film, a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do in this segment, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week is History of the World Part 2, an 8-episode series that was just released on Hulu this past Monday. It was a 4-night event series, so 2 episodes a night, and tonight, Thursday, March 9th, was the last night for the last 2 episodes. It is the direct sequel, continuation of History of the World Part 1 from Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is the narrator, and it's executive produced by Ike Barinholtz, Wanda Sykes, and Nick Kroll, who you may remember from a million different projects, a million different comedy series, and they're just amazing. And everybody contributing to this is just great. Seth Rogen shows up. Everybody and their brother shows up in this series. It's great, and it made me long for more Drunk History. Because interestingly enough, a lot of those contributors from Drunk History are also in this, reenacting all these famous moments in history in crazy sketches, and just it's wonderful. So check it out, Hulu. History of the World Part 2, 8-episode series.
I have not watched it yet, but
It's
from the surface, I have to say Nick Kroll is a very worthy inheritor of the Mel Brooks vibe.
Yeah,
So I am excited about seeing that.
absolutely.
All right, cool. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
My wolf of the week also goes out to a television show. This one is a little bit of a different theme than what Steve's was, though. It is Carnival Row. It's on Amazon Prime Video. Essentially, this is a very Victorian fantasy world with lots of themes that deal with race and that deal with kind of some pre-World War One political structures. In the way it's set up, as you can see from, if you're watching this from the thing we've got pulled up, it features Orlando Bloom, which is fitting considering the very fantasy nature of this. If you haven't seen season 1, essentially in this world there are people and there are fae. And the fae take different forms. There are some creatures called pucks, which have the horns as if the pucks do. There are some creatures who are Minotaur-esque. Some are just fairies. They have wings, and then you have people. Well, in this particular world, the fairy are shoved into ghettos. Like I said, very early 1900s vibe going on here. There's the new season is Rise of Communism, but mainly just really woofy Orlando Bloom, because God bless, I would do things to that man that are illegal in like 48 states. It is ridiculous.
See, and I've never been an Orlando Bloom like, oh my God, is that a dreamy? I've never been that way.
No.
All through college, and like all of my girl friends, my lady friends have all been like, oh my God, he's the hottest man ever. Well, clearly they knew something that I did not, because he has grown into this, and he is, he's beefy. He may not be like it. There's something about him, and then also his delivery in this. He's like the most gruff Cockney ever. He's just like this really, gruff, rough, tumble, daddy type.
Okay.
And I'm here for it, and it's got a really great cast. Cara Duvigny, Simon McBurney, Tamsin Merchant, David Gyasi. It's got a great cast. So all across the board, everyone does a really good job. it is really cool seeing how they depict the different political structures in this kind of Victorian era. Obviously, they're playing on themes such as England and Germany and Russia, and their political dynamics and stuff. So, but it's a fun show, and apparently this is the last season of it, which makes me sad. It is both the second and the final season.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're up against the 2-hour mark, so I'll be as brief as I can with this, but I do have a lot to say from my Woof of the Week. If you were following some of the comic book news that we didn't cover earlier in the episode, another project that's been announced is Fortune and Glory Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, which is Brian Bendis writing about his experiences as one of the ghost writers, one of the initial writers for the Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark musical. Now, for somebody to not be credited for work on a Broadway musical is not uncommon. We think of Neil Simon; his nickname was Doc Simon because he was always brought into doctor scripts. So, where they weren't as funny after Doc Simon got his hands on them, they became a little bit more in line with what the producers wanted. But the credited original writer of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark is a gentleman named Glenn Berger. He won 2 Emmys for his work in children's television. And as I said, he was the credited writer for Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark in its initial stages. When I say initial stages, this is a show that had a preview period of 182 preview performances, which is unheard of. The premiere of the show, opening night, got pushed back 5 times. It was a very troubled production. I was in the audience on December 10th, 2011, when the stuntman fell. Because I didn't see the full show, they invited us back. And then after that, they took out a number of elements after Julie Taymor was removed from the process, who was the original director. And we had to see it again because we had to know what the show was like without those changes. So I ended up seeing this, what is unquestionably a bomb musical, 3 times. The music was by Bono and the Edge of U2. And this book is Song of Spider-Man, the inside story of the most controversial musical in Broadway history. And it is, again, by Glenn Berger. For the nuts and bolts, making the sausage, this is a really good exploration of how a Broadway show fails. For me, I always felt the main issue was the people who were behind this had no passion for the source material. I think that was plain and simple from the get-go, and that's why the show failed. But as I'm reading it, I'm starting to sing songs from the show. So maybe there wasn't, there are 2 songs from the show that aren't bad. So, um, and with Bendis's book coming up, this is a very sensible companion piece to have under your belt when you do start reading that. That is starting on his Substack, but will be published in hardback form by Dark Horse later in the year. So until then, you do have Song of Spider-Man by Glenn Berger. That's my Wolf of the Week.
Nice.
Very cool.
All right. Well, that's our show. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can download us through Apple Podcasts, through Stitcher Radio, and many of the other podcasting platforms. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you've joined us tonight through Facebook Live, we appreciate you. And if you are watching us later on YouTube, thank you for doing that. And please leave a review on that particular platform. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. If you're listening to the audio version, we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Woof.